Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our, once again, on TIU 11 Unified In-Service. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for giving up your time, a very valuable time, especially at this time of the year, to come and be with us here this morning. I have some prepared notes. I've been told by other folks that were unpaid at the time that I do better sometimes speaking just off the cuff and talking about what I want to. But Tim Miller, who helped organize this, told me that I need to write everything down so that I remain on topic and on time. So I apologize. I will have to read from the script here. But before I do that, I just wanted to say, if you notice, the cabinet and our program operators are in business casual today. That was a purposeful leadership decision on my part to bring a casualness to our intermediate unit in service so that we can be here, we can learn from one another, we can meet people that we've only talked to on the phone all year long, and we can integrate and be one for the day. And we don't stand out because some of us have suits on, some don't. Although I do think that my cabinet conspired against me because they all have burgundy on because they knew I'd be wearing my black TIU 11 shirt today. So we'll talk about that later. But the quick funny story, I'm full of stories and other things too. But last night, as I was cooking dinner and running through the house doing 1,000 things, I was carrying my laptop with me because, of course, I was doing the PowerPoint that I have to do today. At the last minute. And my younger son said, "Dad, what are you doing? Why are you walking around the house cooking dinner with that laptop?" And I said, "Because I have to speak to a lot of people tomorrow, and I want to make sure my PowerPoint is really good." And he said, "Ooh, how many people?" And I said, "I think anywhere from 300 to 400 people." And he said, "Doesn't that scare you?" And I said, I've been a superintendent. I've attended PTA meetings where they've been ready to hang me. Not too much scares me anymore. I have to tell you, when I walked in here this morning and I saw all these empty chairs, it scared me a little bit, but I'm okay now. All right, for my prepared remarks. And once again, I'd like to welcome you to the 2018 Unified In-Service for TIU 11. For those of you that may not know me yet, I'm Dr. Sean Kovac, the Executive Director for TIU. It's hard to believe that it's been over a year since I became the Executive Director for the IU. It certainly has been a whirlwind of activity since I hit the ground running in May of 2017. Just so you know, and one of you almost put me over the edge just a second ago with the phone, just so you know, I still consider myself a recovering superintendent. Any loud noises or incoming social media posts or telephones ringing, without a doubt, will distract me for long periods of time. May even put me under a desk. I'd like to thank you for your time today. And as some of you know, this all-inclusive in-service was put on hold a few years ago as a way to curtail expenses. However, we, the leadership at the IU, decided that there's a much larger expense that we were incurring by not having this in-service. And that cost was that we were losing sight of our organization as a whole, and we were losing sight of our collective mission to provide innovative programs and services that inspire and nurture learners of all ages. And that's birth to adult. We're a very large organization. Not as large as some IUs, but as you look around this room, we have many programs and a large amount of people that run those programs. Without this one day a year, this one day for all of us to come together and meet our colleagues from across the state, we're nothing but a bunch of silos standing alone with a myopic purpose. So this one day, we get to see what the entire IU, the entire organism, and the parts that come together to make it work. And that's my purpose for you today. Today's in-service will not be like next year's will be. We are reinventing ourselves at the TIU, and we're learning every day. And since this is my first unified in-service for this IU, and many of my cabinets, we will learn from today, we will learn from your remarks, and we will get better next year. So please, in your feedback forms, make sure you tell us what you liked, and possibly what we could have done better, and what you would like to see next year. And I believe Tim, in the closing remarks today, is going to explain a little bit more about those feedback forms and how you get your stickers to earn your Act 48. Many of you are new to the IU, and many of you have been with us for a long time. And this is our first opportunity to meet. In those regards, I'd like to share a little information about myself. I do this because I believe that if I am to be an effective leader, and I'll bird walk a little bit. I know that shocks my cabinet. One of the things that I've said to my cabinet and the folks in the central office is, being new, they often introduce me to other folks, and they say, "This is my new boss, Dr. Kovac," and I cringe a little bit and I say, "Please don't say that." Later on, I'll say, "Please introduce me as the new leader of the IU," or what have you, because there's a definite leader, or a definite difference between a leader and a boss. And if you signed up for my leadership, as Lincoln would do it, conference later today, we'll discuss that. In those regards, as I said, I'd like to share a little information about myself. I do this because I believe that if I'm to be an effective leader, you need to know me as a person, not as a walking, talking suit. Someone that's been in the trenches and is in the trenches with you at this time. We fight the same battles. I'd like you to know that we have good days, we have bad days, and occasionally we have terrible days. But most importantly, all of us have lives after 4 o'clock. I'm a native of central Pennsylvania. I grew up about 30 miles away from here in Bellwood-Annis. I graduated from Bellwood-Annis High School. I've served as an elementary teacher, assistant principal, and as a superintendent, and as an assistant executive director for the last 27 years. I currently live in Saxton, Pennsylvania, which is at the tip of Lake Gracetown. I have 2 sons who live with me year-round. I adopted a 12-year-old. My first son, who's 26-year-old right now. I adopted him when he was 12, and he's a special needs adult. He's a very high-functioning adult. My 15-year-old son, Michael, came to me as a foster son 4 years ago. We don't use the word foster in my house, so he's just my son, and always will be. Most weekends, and really this entire summer, my 16-year-old godson, Brett, was with us too. I also have 2 other godsons who are 13 and 18, and a goddaughter who's 20. And they rotate in and out of the house, depending on what I have to eat that day. We have 5, yes, I said 5 cats. Thank you, Aaron, my oldest son. If they come to the back door and want food, somehow they're magically ours. And we have a chocolate lab named Loki, who is appropriately named after the Norse god of chaos. I need to say no more. And one of those terrible days that I spoke of earlier, we recently lost our 11-year-old black lab, Thunder, and our 16-year-old cat, Dobby, within 2 days of one another. If you're an animal lover, you know how that can shake your foundations. So if you want to start a conversation with me, we can talk about animals, teenagers, but please bring wine, or other good ideas on quick, nutritious dinners to fix when all I really want to do is go back to McDonald's for the 6th time that week because I couldn't remember to put out the meat to thaw out that day. And it seems like I buy a lot of food just to throw it out about a week later. And I'm sure some of you are in the same boat as I am. However, the one great love that I have in life, besides my family and my pets, is flying. I'm attempting to finish my private pilot's license, and I did solo, which was probably one of the most exhilarating days that I can remember in a long time. As my instructor hopped out of the airplane, I thought I was going to put it away, He said, nope, take it up by yourself. And I said, am I ready? He said, I don't know, but please don't hurt my plane. That reminds me of the day that I got nominated to be executive director of the TIU. I was at the board meeting and they elected me, and all of a sudden the plane was mine and they were hopping overboard. And I'm like, uh-oh, am I ready? I think I was. I still have to come in for a landing though. As I embarked on this journey as the executive director of TIU 11 slightly over a year ago, I can tell you that I discovered we have a fantastic team at TIU 11. I'm extremely happy to have landed with such an excellent team of professionals. For those of you that may work in other programs, you may be a little unfamiliar as to what IUs are and what their purpose is. You know, I get asked all the time when folks ask me, what do I do for a living? And I say I'm the executive director of an intermediate unit. And they look at you with a glazed over look, and you immediately have to go into your 1-minute elevator speech as to what an intermediate unit is. And then they say, oh, I thought you were a teacher, you left education. Like, no. And then we move on. Intermediate units were established in May of 1970. There are 29 intermediate units across the state, and I'm often asked, what do they do? I explain that an intermediate unit acts as an intermediary between the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the school districts that are assigned to it. We provide services and programs that districts by themselves might not otherwise be able to provide to their students on a standalone basis due to the small number of students represented in certain special populations. We're a non-taxing entity. We derive most of our revenue from the services that we offer. In this way, each IU across the state is very different. Often people think of IU 11 as the little white building that sits between cornfields along 522 between Mount Union and Lewistown. But we are so much more. Who would think that IU 11's reach extends from the shores of Lake Erie to the shores of the Delaware River in Philadelphia? Besides providing curriculum, instruction, special education, technology, early intervention services, business office management systems, Act 89 non-public school assistance, and executive office of services to our districts, we also operate plus 7 programs under the umbrella of IU 11. Before this position, I was the assistant executive director at IU 8. And just like IU 11, we had our monthly board meeting, which generally took maybe 10 minutes. Because we had an agenda of about 5 pages if we were lucky, and they blocked that into 2 motions. So you can imagine how fast it went. I thought coming to IU 11 for my first board meeting, well, they're much smaller, because IU 8 has 35 schools. We have 9. So I thought, this is going to be a really fast board meeting. They're laughing because they know. We are such a large organization outside of our schools that we actually have agendas that are upwards of 20 to 25 and sometimes even 30 pages long. And although we do block some of it for voting, we read each one of those motions. So can you imagine my surprise when our board meetings were lasting up to 2 hours, which is fine because they need to last that long for discussion. But I just wanted to give you a scope and an understanding of how large we are. These programs comprise an overall budget of about $35 million, of which $3.2 million comprises the general operating budget, which is the budget that pays to keep the lights on and the salaries of our local staff to provide services to the districts. While our general operating budget is forecast in deficit mode this year of about $500,000, we have not yet accounted for all of our revenue sources yet. Our districts who purchase our services from the IU are waiting to find out the condition of their budgets before they can make commitments to the IU, which is understandable. Additionally, we budgeted conservatively at about a 5% increase for our health care for the upcoming year. With increased revenue streams and a possible less than 5% increase, we hope to quickly close that deficit gap as we approach the new fiscal year. And myself and the cabinet are always looking at our revenue streams and trying to increase those revenue streams to make us a very viable IU. As some of you know, in the last 5 years, we have lost some of our programs, which has cut into our operating revenue. So we're working very hard to gain that revenue back.